Howdy folks, it's a windy day and tragically so. I just hope that everyone is as safe as can be for the rest of today.
Would the ex-party be pushing for asset sales next year?
Look, I think we've got to ask ourselves, $500 million worth of assets the government owns, but we still can't get vital infrastructure like roads and hospitals. Yes, I think we do need to ask ourselves, should we be selling some things we don't need to buy things we need more? That's what any responsible business or household does.
What assets would you like to see up?
Well, we own a huge number of commercial companies that aren't really a government thing, they're just companies that sell products and compete with other companies. Is it worth the government owning those when it could own a road or a hospital, say?
Can you give any examples of those, more specifically?
Yeah, well look, I mean, we own majority shares in 3 power companies that compete with each other and aren't too easy on the prices, so it's not clear what the public benefit of owning those is. Maybe someone else should take the risk. People won't know, but it's a small one, but we own Quotable Value, which does property valuation, including for the Government of New South Wales. Is that something that the government needs to do when it needs to actually build schools, hospitals and roads? I would say probably not.
How do you think your current coalition partners would feel about asset sales?
Well, you know, their feelings are not my responsibility. I think my responsibility is to present to New Zealanders a way forward so our country can prosper.
Have you
had conversations with National about the possibility of asset sales either this term or next?
Well, not really, because it's no mystery what the ACT Party thinks about this. We are a country that faces some serious challenges. We can't afford luxury beliefs like owning things for the sake of it. If we've got $500 billion, $600 billion worth of assets, we've got to ask ourselves, are they the right ones? Because we've got hospitals falling down, roads that aren't complete, and we're busy owning property valuation companies. I think you've got to have an honest conversation. And I'm a little bit tired of this idea that we can't have honest conversations about our future in New Zealand because everyone's too prickly or afraid.
Who's afraid to have a conversation?
Well, every time you make an announcement like this, you go on social media and you see people losing their rag about the simple question, you know, $500 billion of state assets on the government's books, are they the right ones?
Would you prefer to see those assets recycled, you know, basically turned into new state-owned assets, or just literally
Well, I'm not saying the government should reduce the overall size of its balance sheet, because there's so much stuff that we need, especially if you look at different types of infrastructure, roading, hospitals, schools. There'll never be a shortage of stuff that we need. So I don't see the government's balance sheet getting smaller, but I could see it containing different stuff. If there's a business that really is just a business that competes with a lot of other private businesses, does New Zealand need to have a government putting taxpayer money into that? Or clearly not, because other businesses can provide the same service. On the other hand, there are some things that only the government can do, and that tends to be things like roads to connect actual businesses together so that New Zealanders can make money and have opportunity.
What about a national carrier?
Well, once again, you ask yourself the question, there's a whole lot of people trying to compete to fly within New Zealand and in and out of New Zealand. Is it necessary that the government owns an airline to do that? I think that's a question that people should be allowed to ask. At the moment, it's almost as though you're not allowed to ask it. Certainly, there's a decent question, do we need to own more than 51% of it? If you want to keep control at 51, that's one question. You want to keep negative control at 25, that's another question. So there are actual options that need to be debated, because the idea that New Zealand can just keep sleepwalking in its current direction, I think that's going to become unrealistic. It's actually becoming unrealistic for countries around the world who are looking at the amount of debt. They're looking at what bond vigilantes are prepared to pay for their debt, and at some point you've got to have honest conversations.
If the Crown was to hang on to these assets, does it make sense to ring fence the dividends, and so the money is spent on infrastructure, for example?
Oh, well, if you're talking about Labor's future flop, I mean, let's be honest, they're going to give up $1 billion a year of dividends that can be used for schools, hospitals and roads. They're going to give a punt on investing in a bunch of other businesses, and when they lose all that money, they'll say sorry, and we'll be back here trying to clean it up again. And then the truth is, if Chris Hipkins knew what to invest in, he wouldn't be here, he'd be rich. But the reality is he's still here making a fraction of what successful investment bankers make because he doesn't have a clue what to invest in, but he's quite happy to have a punt with your money, and that's what it is. It's taxpayer money currently used for schools and hospitals that would be taken and put into this boondoggle and wasted on your behalf. I mean, they did this with the Green Investment Fund, lost hundreds of millions compared with just putting it in KiwiSaver. They did it with Kiwi Build, thought they could do a better job than private developers. I mean, they're not called the business party for a reason. The reason they're called the Labour Party is that I wouldn't trust them to invest an instant Kiwi.
What would you make of an MP sharing policy with a media platform without telling their leader that they were going to share that policy?
Oh, well, look, I mean, the ACT Party's got so many policies that I wouldn't be surprised if some of our MPs had let some split. There's more where that comes from. Well, look, I mean,
dysfunction with our party
look,
if the MP
Labor haven't released a policy for 2 years, so if I was a Labor MP with a policy, I probably would release it.
Could I please ask about Sisters United?
You absolutely can.
Look, we actually think on the Hapori that it's a magnificent idea given the rangatiratanga of our kōrero in Samoan as well as the Cook Island as well as Māori. What was the selling point for that particular charter school?
Well, Sisters United have a strong track record of empowering young Pacifica women in South Auckland. They said we can do better if we run a school and take care of all their education. And we said, look, proven track record, good proposition to run a school. That is a great charter school, and we're really proud to have Sisters United opening a school for young Pacifica and Māori women in South Auckland from next year.
But for some of those that might push back on that, that's no different from a school like Auckland Girls, Epsom Girls, anything like that. But this is specifically targeting an all-round educational package.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, these schools have to reach high academic standards. They're the only schools contracted for the students to pass their exams. If they don't reach the academic standards, the school can be shut down. Similarly, if a student goes from, say, Auckland Girls Grammar to Epsom Girls Grammar, actually the funding goes with the student. If they go from a state school to a charter school, the funding goes with the student. So there's no extra money here. It's just the money that those girls already deserve because they're citizens of New Zealand entitled to a state-funded education.
What do you say, though, to some of those that do push back on the initiative that it is separatist because it is for...
Well, again, everyone has the right to be extended to the full extent of their academic powers and make the most of opportunities that this country gives them. I don't think we're going to say that you can't have Catholic schools or you can't have private schools or you can't have a state school that's a bit different from the others. So why are they suddenly opposed to a charter school? I think really it's a fear and lack of acceptance of people being different. I think we should celebrate difference so long as there's some core things like learning to read, learning to count, learning the skills that allow us to participate in our society.
But the success rate for kura haurua under the last initiative, particularly those around Māori and kura, very high achievement rate. So that is a plus to have.
Yeah, look, I mean, Te Kapahu Whetū was the second highest achieving school in Northland according to university entrance, and they did that as a school with entirely Māori students. I mean, that's phenomenal, and we want to see a lot more of that success.
And Labour has reiterated that they won't have charter schools if they get back into government. So what happens to those specialist schools like the sports academy that's starting in Upper Hutt?
Well, just to be clear, you know, Labour talk a big game, but they kept every single charter school going last time they won an election. The way things are going, I'm not sure that that's going to be relevant anyway.
Has it had any effect on applications? Are people concerned at all about, you know, the future of their school?
Yeah, you know, unfortunately, when you have an opposition that is negative on everything, they're negative on oil and gas, they're negative on charter schools, they're negative on investment from overseas, they're negative on landlords. Everything Labour does actually, has a negative effect on New Zealand because people have to price in the remote chance they might win another election and bugger everything up again.
If they were to keep the schools but change the structure to say to state integrated or so something different, special character, how would that be disruptive, or could those schools kind of continue business as usual under
first of all, I think it's pretty remote, but let's have a hypothetical conversation. You look at what they did last time. They said, right, you close one day, you open the next day as a state school, you have union contracts, you have the cookie cutter school board governance system framework that often doesn't work for poorer communities, and you no longer have contracts for attendance and achievement. Now, what's interesting is that none of the former charter schools applied this time, and frankly, a lot of them wouldn't have been welcome to apply because they've deteriorated under the standards that Labor set for them. Under our system, some of them may have been shut down, or I suspect they would have met the standards. So look, it is a real problem when they come and interfere. I would hope that they'll actually respect the contract signed. And there's a few things that are different. There's a lot more of them. There's a lot wider range of people invested in them. The contracts are for 30 years instead of just the 5 that we had previously. So there's a few reasons why things might be different this time too.
When you've been out in your electorate and around meeting people, what has been the feedback around this week's industrial action, the so-called Leader strike on Thursday?
Look, there's a range of views. I mean, people care deeply about these professionals. They love their teachers, they love their nurses, they want to see these people rewarded. But people equally recognise that everyone in New Zealand's been doing it tough, and most workers haven't had the kind of increase in payment that some of these professions have had in recent years. I mean, 14.5% in 3 years for teachers. You know, nurses, 2,000 extra hired, now $127,000 top of the scale. Salaried medical specialists, $340,000. I mean, that's big money for most New Zealanders. So yes, people love those professions. They also recognise that there are challenges for just about everyone, including those paying taxes, to pay those salaries.
And what do you think needs to happen now? Obviously, there's a lot of discussion leading up to Thursday. Both sides have taken quite a hard line. How do you break through that impasse, that roadblock? What do you think?
The fact of the matter is there's only 5 million of us, and we've got to work together. The people that are striking need to know that it's not out of a hard heart, it's about a serious challenge that everyone in this country is facing, including the government. The people in the government need to know these are not bad people. We actually do all ultimately want to work together and deliver the services as best we can.
And do you think that you've still got a good faith relationship, that after all of this you can get back around the table and actually negotiate a way forward?
Yeah, look, New Zealand's worked through much tougher issues than this, so I don't think it's a major problem for the long term. All right, thank you, folks.